All Oilers in the third period as they pull away from the Canucks. 7-3 the final at Rogers Arena. Boy, plenty to break down, and we'll do that right now on Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside our Rink Wide Vancouver studios here in downtown Vancouver, the lower lobby of the Wall Center Hotel on a Saturday night. A game that saw the Edmonton Oilers skate circles around the Vancouver Canucks in the third period. It was a close game midway through the second. It was all Oilers from that point on. Their stars came to play, but so did their depth scorers, and that's been an issue for the Edmonton Oilers this season. It was not an issue for the Oilers tonight. There were plenty of issues for the Vancouver Canucks. 7-3 the final score. We're going to break it all down. Jeff Pettersson with you, flying solo here on this Saturday night, at least for now. We may have a co-host. We shall see. A little technical issue on the side, but we're going to push on. The Canucks didn't do much pushing in the third period of this hockey game, and some real concerns about the home ice performance and record for the Vancouver Canucks. Again, lots to talk about, and we want your feedback too, especially if it's just me solo here in our studios tonight. You see all the feedback channels, so we encourage you always to give us a follow. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. That chat is hopping, and we'll duck in there and see what the people are saying. Rink Wide is brought to you in part by Greta Bar YVR. The Canucks home for 6 in a row. It's a big week coming up with the Grey Cup as well. If you're looking for a place to watch all the games, you really need to experience all that Greta Bar has to offer. So many big screens, it means there isn't a bad seat in the house. You got the arcade games, the terrific street food, weekly drink specials as well. Greta, located minutes from the arena and the stadium. Location makes it easy to come by before or after the game or an event. Greta Bar, the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. Kevin Lankinen has been one of the stories of the Vancouver Canucks season to this point. He gets the hook tonight, and that is something that we have not seen from Rick Tocchet in his tenure as the head coach. He's been patient with his goaltenders because there have been some tough nights. They gave up 10 in Minnesota last year. Left poor Casey DeSmith in for all of them on that afternoon. Here tonight, Kevin Lankinen gets shelled for 7, and then the hook came out. Artur Silovs came in mop-up duty. Didn't give up a goal. The Canucks score a late one on the power play. But really, that was just lipstick on a pig, and this turned out to be a pig if you're the Vancouver Canucks. There haven't been many stinkers this season, but as we said a moment ago, at home, this is becoming a real concern now. The last home game was terrible. They got shut out by the New Jersey Devils 6-0. Then they go onto the road, sweep the California teams. Their best effort of the season the other night in Los Angeles. You thought had a little momentum as they came back home to kick off a 6-game homestand. And then they do this in front of the paying customers. The Canucks with just one home ice victory now in 6 tries. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins a couple of Saturdays ago. Other than that, you know the story. They've let leads get away early on. Then they've been so inferior compared to their opponents. So the last couple of home games, the Devils and now the Edmonton Oilers. Where to begin? I suppose part of the problem is the Canucks falling behind again and playing catch-up. Now, a stirring comeback attempt in the second period, down 3-0, and then in the blink of an eye, Elias Pettersson gets the comeback going. More on him as we work our way through this program. He scores 5 minutes into the second period, gets the Canucks on the board, some life in the building, and 2 minutes after that, it was Filip Hronek with his first of the year, a pretty goal set up by Teddy Bluger as he snapped it high. On the glove side of Stuart Skinner, that made it a 3-2 game. There's 13 minutes to go in the second period. So the Canucks had momentum. They had some life. Credit Chris Knoblauch, though. He calls a timeout. His team is still in the lead, but he sensed the tide's turning. And the Edmonton Oilers coach calls a timeout, tries to settle his team down. I'm not going to say that that was the key to the victory for the Edmonton Oilers. The players on the ice are the guys that ultimately get the job done. But Chris Knoblauch had a hand in this as well. I mean, that's some terrific coaching. Sensing, reading, getting a feel for his group that was sagging a little bit, and the Canucks were coming on. He calls a timeout, settles it down, and really it was all Edmonton from that point on, even though it was 3-2 going to the third period. It was a 1-goal game. The Canucks were 1 shot away going to the third period. And unfortunately for them, almost all the shots that were sent the way of Kevin Lankinen found their way through the Canuck goaltender. That's just something that we haven't seen from him. He suffered his first regulation loss in Canuck colors, so he drops to 7-1-2 on the season. As a team, the Canucks see their 3-game win streak come to an end. Thud. You could hear it crash to the ground. The Vancouver Canucks now 7-3-3 on the season, so they remain on 17 points. And the Edmonton Oilers creep a little closer. They get their 7th victory of the year. They're now 500 at 7-7-1. We mentioned the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl, they each scored. McDavid ends up with 3 points. Draisaitl has 2. So, yeah, the big guns showed up. They're on the score sheet. But it was the other Connor Brown with a couple of goals. Brett Kulak scores. Corey Perry. Victor Arvidsson was brought in to score goals. Hadn't done an awful lot of it, just his 2nd of the season. That one made it 3-0, and you kind of thought, all right, maybe the hook's coming out at that point. Although, I really didn't have an issue with the goals that had been scored on Kevin Lankinen at that point, but I just thought for a momentum turn, and I do think that Lankinen sort of looked at the bench and thought the same thing. But Rick Tocchet, loyal to a guy who has been so good for the Vancouver Canucks all season long, keeps Lankinen in there, but eventually that hook did have to come out after the 7th goal. When you look at the way this game unfolds, Quinn Hughes takes a holding penalty on Connor McDavid in the first minute of play. We were remarking 2 shows ago that Quinn Hughes hadn't taken a penalty yet, got the matching minors with Brant Clark late in the game in Los Angeles. So for a second straight game, Canuck captain finds his way to the penalty box. And while the Oilers didn't score on the power play, they zipped it around. They had opportunities. With 2 seconds after Quinn Hughes steps out of the box, Draisaitl, nifty move around Nils Aman to keep control of the puck. And then they work to the front of the net, and there's Draisaitl off to the side as the puck squirts to him. And he taps it in for his 10th goal of the season. So the Oilers open the scoring. It's their big guns. They're on it. Again, not a power play goal, but it sort of came with the man advantage as Quinn Hughes didn't have time to get back into the play. And, we're not going to pin it on the Canucks captain, but obviously the Canucks are a much better hockey club when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, although it turned into a tough night for him along with so many of his teammates. I didn't love the first period for the Vancouver Canucks, and in saying that, they get out of it down 1-0. No big deal. Again, you'd like to open the scoring one of these nights, but down 1-0, outplayed, and the shots were 5-0 at one point. Just going back to that early power play. So Quinn Hughes takes a penalty. I didn't have an issue with the call. But on the power play, Connor Garland looked like he got tripped up by Connor McDavid. Maybe a 50-50 play, but the Star gets the benefit of the doubt. So the Star on one side is in the penalty box. A lot of times we'll see referees try and even things up, try and set a tone for a big divisional rivalry game like this one. And that was a jump ball, and he could have gone either way. And Garland looked frustrated in the moment because he did get tripped up by McDavid anyway, play on. And eventually the Oilers zip it around and they score and open the scoring there. But when I look at the first period in totality, it was just way too much one and done for the Vancouver Canucks offensively. So they give up the early goal. Now you're chasing the game a little bit. But just 7 shots on net in that first period. That's Stuart Skinner at the other end of the ice. You got to test him. You got to make him make some saves. And the Canucks didn't do much of that. So I didn't love the first period. But all things considered, to get out of that first period down 1-0, not a bad spot to be. But then Corey Perry, tap in front of the net. 3.5 minutes in, and 1:13 after that, Victor Arvidsson off the rush, snapshot, beat Lankinen, and now it's 3-0, and you're thinking, uh-oh, Canucks are in all sorts of trouble. I just want to go back to the Perry goal for a sec, his 3rd of the year, because I thought that was a fascinating sequence. Noah Juleson hoists the puck from deep in his own end, and it slides the length of the ice. But it slid so slowly. The Oiler defenseman easily could have got back there. And instead makes no effort, sells it, linesman calls it icing, face-off back in the Canucks zone, and the puck never left the Canucks zone until it was in the back of the net. It was unfortunate, a bit of a funky bounce off the stanchion when it looked like Branston was going to go glassing out. But in saying all of that, like the Oilers get an offensive zone face-off, Chris Knoblauch easily could have gone with McDavid or Draisaitl or both. He leaves his fourth-line guys out there, and the Oilers win that matchup and extend their lead to 2-0, and then Arvidsson a few minutes after that, or a minute and 13 after that, and it's 3-0. So at 3-0, it looked like the Oilers may run away and hide from the Canucks, and ultimately they did, but not in that moment, because Elias Pettersson with a nice deflection, going to the front of the net, and I know that we spend just about every episode of Rink Wide talking about Elias Pettersson. I get it. Tonight, I think we're talking about him for the right reasons. Now, the team lost, so call it silver lining, scraping for positives. That's not really what we're here to do on Rink Wide. Credit where it's due. I thought Elias Pettersson, hands down, was the best Canuck on the ice. A goal, a late assist on the Pia Suter power play goal. The scoring chances one-sided when Petey was out there. Now, JT Miller did the heavy lifting, took on the McDavid matchup. We'll talk more about that. But when you look under the hood in this hockey game, scoring chances at 5-on-5 with Elias Pettersson on the ice, 9-3 in favor of the Canucks. I know they got stomped by the Oilers, so it's hard to sit here and get too worked up about Elias Pettersson's best night, but we're all waiting for Elias Pettersson to score goals. He had a multi-point game, first of the season. Didn't have one in the playoffs either. You got to go back to March to find the last time Elias Pettersson had a multi-point game, which is just a mind-boggling. I mean, we'll have a stat that stands out a little later. That one jumps out certainly at me. But we've been saying this after a few games recently. Signs of life, steps in the right direction. I thought, and the game plan clearly from Rick Tocchet, the way that he deployed his lines and had Pettersson playing with Jake DeBrusk and Nils Höglander. He had Miller with Garland. They moved Garland into Besser's spot and Pia Suter on the other side. It was done to combat the Oilers and to give Miller the McDavid matchup. Well, how did that go? For JT, not so well. Where the underlying numbers look pretty solid for Elias Pettersson, JT Miller didn't have a single shot on goal himself tonight. He's on for 3 Oiler goals at 5-on-5, so he's -3. Scoring chances were 9-0. Or check that, 9-1 in favor of the Oilers. Shots on goal were 8-0. And Miller's individual Corsi, 3 shot attempts for the Canucks, 15 against by the Oilers. JT Miller with the individual Corsi of 16.5% on the night. So hands down, the matchup goes to Connor McDavid. Again, he had a goal and a couple of assists. Could have had more if not for the terrific defensive play by Pettersson on that power play in the third period. So, again, it kind of feels like things are tracking back to Elias Pettersson on this night. It was a forgettable night for JT Miller. Now, Canucks were without Brock Besser. Yes, I get it. And they may be for a while. Nobody seems to know right now. That is a front burner storyline. Leading goal scorer, the headshot the other night. But one guy, even if it's your leading scorer, like this is right back to Game 7 in the playoffs last year. And I kind of thought, all right, if the Oilers win 3-2, it's really going to feel like Game 7 again. But they end up winning 7-3. Anyhow, I mean, everybody's hoping that Brock Besser isn't out long. Rick Tocchet said he saw him this morning, talked to him, wasn't sure. So that's not much of an update. But the Canucks had to push on without Brock Besser. And we'll see how long he's out of the lineup and how long they're going to have to get by without their leading goal scorer. Other guys have to step up and step into the breach there. And there just weren't enough of that. They're just nowhere close to enough of that from the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, Connor Garland's been so good all season. Again, he spent the night defending along with JT Miller. Jake DeBrusk picks up an assist, but you're looking for more. I know he had scored in 3 straight. Couldn't bring that back home and continue his production at Rogers Arena. So all 3 of his goals remain in the state of California. Whatever the case, the Canucks needed more from the top end. And look, Rick Tocchet with a curious decision to go 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. And we'll find out a little bit more about his thinking here when he gets to the podium. But that seemed to cause some issues. When you have 7 defensemen and you're trying to roll them in there and get them all ice time, you're bound to get some odd combinations. And there was a sequence in the second period where Quinn Hughes and Eric Brandstrom were out together. And I thought, okay, this could be fun. It didn't turn out to be terribly fun. But that was followed up by Tyler Myers and Vincent Desharnais on a shift together. So you got 2 undersized lefties, and then you get 2 giant righties, and it really kind of felt like that mix and match And I'm not sure that they found anything that worked particularly well on this night. And, some of the games earlier this season when they were giving up chances, the goalie was the last line of defense. That wasn't the case in this one, as Lankinen gets shelled, and then ultimately he gets pulled. So, all right, let's get to the 3 stars of this hockey game. Lots of candidates, obviously, but we're going to go with some of the big names. We've talked about them already, but there's McDavid with a goal and 2 assists. Got back in the lineup on Wednesday against Vegas. Didn't figure in the scoring, but had missed 3 games, so probably had a little rust to shake off. Ankle looked just fine tonight. Drew a couple penalties as well, so when you look at this Oilers victory, his fingerprints all over it. He's been a first star in a lot of hockey games. He was the first star in this one here on Rink Wide Vancouver. So we've got McDavid, we've got Draisaitl with a goal and an assist. He opens the scoring. He's up to 10 now, leads the Oilers team in scoring as well. And, he's just a factor. He's a massive man and just uses that size so effectively to shield the puck, but has the playmaking chops. Everybody knows that. I thought he was really good, particularly in the first half of this hockey game, helping the Oilers build that 3-0 lead. And then we talk about Elias Pettersson, a goal and an assist. We'll throw in the block as well. For me, that's somewhat inconsequential. It was more, we saw him, the defensive awareness. Again, the play that he makes at the side of the net on the penalty kill on McDavid, it saves a sure goal. The Oilers got enough in the third period that, they're probably not going to lose sleep over the one that got away from them. But Petey hit a post as well, shooting from distance. And when you look at Elias Pettersson's night as a whole, 19 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time, 2 shots on goal, 5 attempts. So again, he's putting pucks to the net, and he held his own in the faceoff circle. 8 wins and 8 losses. So those are the 3 stars, guys that are often stars, although in Pettersson's case, hasn't happened enough early on in hockey games. The Hockey Night in Canada, 3 stars in the building. Matthias Janmark, Connor McDavid, and Leon Draisaitl. So a clean sweep for the Oilers. And yes, Janmark led all scorers in this hockey game. He had 3 assists, so he had 3 points. And really, when you think of the way the Canucks season has unfolded through the first 12 games, one of the real storylines has been depth contributions, right? Whether it's Kiefer Sherwood, Teddy Bluger, Pia Suter, on and on down the line. Danton Heinen had a 2-goal game not that long ago in Chicago. He had a goal the other night, played his 500th game in the National Hockey League, so a big milestone night for Danton Heinen. Kiefer Sherwood played his 200th game in the NHL, by the way. Canucks have been getting all sorts of depth contribution, and then goaltending, well, tables were turned on them in a big way when you look at whether it was Connor Brown with 2, Brett Kulak has 4 goals. Brett Kulak, 4 goals already this season. So that's been one of the issues for the Oilers. If McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, or Ekholm haven't been going, they just haven't been getting enough. They came into the game, all their forwards other than Draisaitl and McDavid, the highest scoring guy had 6 points coming into this game. And so, there are a few guys that probably exhale a little as they find the score sheet. They contribute to a big Edmonton victory. And one of the storylines last year was the complete sweep by the Canucks in the regular season. Did it matter in the playoffs? No. Oilers got the last laugh there. But the Canucks going 4-0 was a huge part of them getting to 50 wins, 109 points, holding off the Oilers late to win the Pacific Division in the regular season. Well, they're not going to sweep the Oil, and the Oil have a chance. The 2 teams will meet again 2 more times, 5 days apart in the middle of January. That is when these teams will meet next, I think here on the 18th and there on the 23rd. 3 stars of the game brought to you by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing and new locations opening. You need to get more customers and then keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. When you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca to see why Square is big in restaurants. YouTube live chat is hopping tonight. Just looking there as I go through, a lot of people sticking up and supporting Elias Pettersson. We haven't seen a lot of that, certainly through the first 12 games of the season. But again, credit where it's due on a night when there weren't many others going. Elias Pettersson, in my mind, was easily the best member of the Vancouver Canucks. So, we'll see how this team bounces back. It responded to the 6-0 shellacking at the hands of New Jersey with the 3-game sweep out on the road. They've got Calgary coming in on Tuesday. I believe they're going to have practices both Sunday and Monday, and they got plenty to work on, without a doubt. And, I mean, let's get into it because I see a lot of people in the chat, too, getting pretty fed up with the way the Canucks have played on home ice in front of the paying customers. There were a lot of Oilers fans in the building, and you could hear them right from the outset, got the Go Oilers, Go chants going, and then Canuck fans trying to drown them out. But it was a long night for Canuck fans, and it was a fun night for Oiler fans. And we've seen this in the last couple of years. They're able to get their hands on tickets, whether it's, resale market, whether they got friends in Vancouver that offer them up. There are a lot more Oiler fans in the building these days than there have been going back 6, 8, 10 years. But this home ice record for the Vancouver Canucks, it's hurting. They're 1-2-3 now. One victory in 6 games at Rogers Arena in front of the paying customers. Paying customers want to be entertained, and ultimately they want to see the home team win hockey games. And they've seen one win, and that was against a crappy Pittsburgh team a couple of Saturdays ago. But more than that, they've lost 3 in a row now. 2 in regulation to the Oilers and to New Jersey, and then the overtime loss to the Carolina Hurricanes when the Canes were clearly the better team on the night, but the Canucks did mount a third-period comeback there. This is where it starts to get a little malodorous, if you will. The Canucks have already given up 6 or more goals in 3 of their 6 home games. Half their home games, they've been torched for 6 or more. Calgary did it, Jersey did it, and now the Edmonton Oilers outdid those other teams, got it to 7. Canucks have been outscored 28-17 in 6 home games. The Vancouver Canucks and the Chicago Blackhawks, the only teams in the National Hockey League with a single solitary home ice victory. You don't want to be keeping company with the Chicago Blackhawks in any statistical category. But that's where the Canucks find themselves right now. They and the Blackhawks, worst teams in the National Hockey League in terms of the number of home ice victories. Just 1 for the Vancouver Canucks. And again, this is the start of a 6-game homestand. So you're certainly hoping that this did not set the tone in any way for a 6-game homestand that'll continue on. Calgary's in. The Islanders are here. Blackhawks next Saturday. Connor Bedard's first visit to Vancouver in the National Hockey League because he was hurt last year. Nashville on the Sunday, back-to-back. The Blackhawks and the Predators, and then the New York Rangers come calling to wrap up the homestand before the Canucks head back out of town. And we know that they've been terrific on the road. Thank goodness for the road record because home ice has been a disaster for the Vancouver Canucks to this point. As I look at this game, one thing that jumped out at me, I mean, the Canucks score a late power play goal. Bouchard got called for, interference. Just under 2 minutes to go. So the Canucks didn't even get full 2 minutes. Didn't need the full 2 minutes because Pia Suter scores with 54 seconds to go. Set up neatly by Elias Pettersson. And again, credit to Petey, slides the pass over Pia Suter with his 5th goal of the year. So again, we're not looking for silver linings, but Pia Suter with 5 goals through 13 games. Nice production from him. Quinn Hughes gets a second assist there, so another point for the captain. Extends his lead atop the team scoring derby. The Canucks officially go 1 for 2 on the power play in this hockey game. Nothing wrong with 50% conversion rate. The bigger issue is the Edmonton Oilers are the worst penalty-killing team in the National Hockey League, and the late Suter goal is not going to help them statistically. But the Canucks did nothing to draw penalties. Darnell Nurse got called for cross-checking midway through the second. That looked like it was going to be the only penalty the Oilers took all night until the Bouchard call. But who controlled the play? Who drove the play? It was the Oilers all night long. And I see people in the chat who are complaining about the officiating. And go ahead. But the Canucks did not lose this game because of the officiating. Did they deserve a few more calls along the way? I touched on the Connor Garland one on the power play early. But this is a Canucks team that had an Oilers club that came in here reeling on the penalty kill, and the Canucks just didn't do enough to draw penalties, first of all, and then put the hammer down. And here we are, 13 games in, still waiting for the Canucks to have a game where the power play wins them the hockey game. I guess I've got time for an argument that the game in Chicago, when they did score power play goals, that was key. But opening night against Calgary, they scored 2 early power play goals, and we know how that game bottom fell out then. just as it did in this one as well. So, there have been power play goals here and there. They had scored in each of the last couple of games on the power play, but they had the 5-minute power play the other night against Los Angeles, and it really scuffled until Connor Garland scored, got some help from Darcy Kemper. But, still waiting for this power play to command the opportunities that it gets, and part of the story in this one was it just didn't get many opportunities. So that's a storyline that you have to continue to monitor and watch. Thought it was interesting that they know Brock Besser and they roll up Pius Suter on power play 1, not Jake DeBrusk. I kind of thought maybe that would be an opportunity for DeBrusk to get back onto the top unit the way he started the season. He had scored in 3 straight games, but Rick Tocchet elected to go with Pius Suter, who isn't going to hurt you, is generally sort of that defensive conscience out there, but let's be honest now, the guy's got 5 goals. All of a sudden, he's starting to look like a bit of a weapon, so maybe it made sense that Pius Suter was the guy that got the opportunity out there with the man advantage. The final shots in the hockey game, 31-20, but the bigger story there is 16-6 in a one-sided, absolutely one-sided third period of play. So the Vancouver Canucks generating just 20 shots on goal on home ice, and one of those was the late one by Pius Suter that finds the back of the net. So the Canuck goals on the night, Pettersson, his third of the year, Filip Hronek, who we know can shoot the puck now that he's completely healthy, but that was his first of the year. I want to see him shoot the puck more and hit the target. That's part of the problem when he shoots, a little bit wild, but off the rush, kind of put on a tee by Teddy Bluger, and he beat Stuart Skinner high to the glove side. And again, at that point, it's 3-2, game on, Canucks back in it. You had some life, and then the life was sapped. I mean, it was just taken right out of them. And, it's unfortunate because, look, you're not going to win every game. I get that. But there's got to be some pushback, and there was no pushback whatsoever against Jersey. I know we saw some in the chat the other night that, where was the pushback when Tanner Jeannot clips Brock Besser? They're down 1-0. They knew they were going to get a power play out of it. Jeannot gets thrown out of the game. Do you want... I don't even remember who was on the ice. Hughes and Hronek, I think, were out there. Quinn Hughes isn't going to jump Tanner Jeannot. He's not going to fight him. Thought it was interesting today when I asked Vinny Desharnais about the hit, and he said that, the league did what it did, and then he said, next time we see them, he kind of stopped himself, and then he said, next time we see them, he said, but we don't have to worry about them. It's the Oilers that we're focusing on, and obviously the focus wasn't there for large parts of this hockey game, but they've taken note. And the Canucks play the Kings next on January 16th. So they play the Oilers on January 18th. Edmonton's visit here, the next visit, will be 2 days, the game after the Los Angeles Kings are here. So certainly some storylines already percolating for that visit from the Kings on the 16th of January. Let's get to the stat that stands out in this hockey game, because this has become a bit of an issue for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, we used this, I want to say, 3 games ago when it was at 4. So we're recycling stats that stand out, but they stand out even more so now. Canucks have conceded the first goal in 7 straight games. Did it matter down in California? No. Ultimately, they were able to rally and beat the Sharks and the Ducks and the Kings. But here tonight, they give up the first one, then they give up the second one and the third one. And so that's the problem. When you give up the first one, your margins are remarkably thin. You're trying to score, but obviously the other team's trying to extend its lead. And the Oilers did a nice job of that and built a 3-0 lead, and that's when the comeback kicked in for the Vancouver Canucks. But we've said it before, we'll say it again, 53 times in 82 games last year, the Canucks opened the scoring. It really was one of their sort of strengths. It was the secret sauce. They just got the jump on so many opponents. It built from there. And right now in this rut where they're giving up goals and giving up early goals. Quentin Byfield scored in the first couple of minutes the other night against Los Angeles. Anaheim even on an early power play. And then here tonight, Draisaitl, 2 minutes and 46 seconds in. So, that is absolutely a stat that stands out. And you'd love to see the Canucks flip that script, get a lead, build on it. But we're not seeing a whole lot of that. All right, as we have said before, we want your feedback. It's just me flying solo tonight. It's not going to happen too often throughout the season, but hopefully you're hanging in there with us. We appreciate your support of Rink Wide as we do this after each and every Vancouver Canucks game. Michael says, Nilson's performance was questionable. You got a guy that just cleared waivers, gets called up, should be going through the walls to prove his worth, and then comes out flat. But I don't know what you expect, first of all, from Nilsson. And on a night when the Canucks get pumped 7-3, Nilsson is pretty far down my list. But you asked about him, so let's get into it. 11 minutes and 15 seconds of ice time. No shot attempts. 3 hits. He won his only face-off. Was playing wing because Ratu was the center on that fourth line. And Ratu, give the guy credit. Like, even as a young player, he is a demon in the face-off circle. He was 9-5 on the draw tonight, so 64%. In the face-off circle, wins a team-high 9 face-offs for the Canucks. Again, with 11 forwards, it gets a little screwy out there. It's hard for the coach to roll lines because all of a sudden he's basically got 3 forward lines and then he's trying to plug 2 other guys in there. There wasn't a game that was interrupted by a ton of special teams until the third period. But, I think it's difficult for the flow. But whatever the case, like, would you love to see a guy who just got recalled, fired out of cannon, and, you're not going to send me back to Abbotsford? That's just not who Nilsson is. I think we all know that by this stage of his career. So, was he good enough? No. Was anybody good enough in this hockey game? Not really. But, again, I think the issues on this night are above Nilsson on the depth chart. A1 on YouTube says, does every single forward have to be good defensively just to stay on the team? They could really use a guy like Daniel Sprong, and I've seen a few of these in the chat that, the day after they trade Sprong, basically give him away to Seattle. Well, now they can't score. They're short of forward. Rick talked about it. I asked him this morning, and he just said, he just didn't feel like a fit in the top 6, and they didn't think he was a fit in the bottom 6 either. So Tocchet said it wasn't fair to Sprong to play 10 minutes a night. He's an offensive guy, and I think they wanted to do right by a veteran. No problems sort of taking the swing on Sprong, the idea of Daniel Sprong. But I will say this. In hindsight, I get it. Like, we're all armchair quarterbacks. But with the benefit of hindsight, would the Canucks have been better to hold on to Vasily Podkolzin rather than basically giving him to the Edmonton Oilers if they knew that the Daniel Sprong experiment wasn't even going to make it to the 10-game mark? I was thinking of that as I watched Podkolzin getting a great opportunity, play relatively high up in the Edmonton lineup. And on a night when the Oilers score 7, he's one of the few guys that doesn't figure in the scoring. And we all remember that from Podkolzin's time here with Vancouver, that you like the guy, you like the hustle, but for a 10th overall pick, not a lot of offense. But again, they take a flyer on Daniel Sprong, who came as advertised. There were, from day one, this guy came with a reputation that defense wasn't his forte, and we saw that on a couple of occasions, and ultimately they show him the door. I'm not saying that Vasily Podkolzin is the answer, but might they have been able to build Podkolzin into something more than he's been to this point? We won't know. He plays for the Edmonton Oilers, and again, they didn't lose because they traded Vasily Podkolzin. He didn't come back and haunt them tonight. It was many others on that Edmonton roster. All right, keep the comments coming. We'll continue to look into the YouTube chat as well. And, it'll be interesting to see what Rick Tocchet has to say about this one. Clearly won't be happy. And I do wonder, this is a guy that, his playing days was all about some sort of response. And responses can come in a variety of ways. There was no response to New Jersey. There was really no response. There was in the second period. I don't want to say there was zero response, because there was. And it looked like the Canucks might come all the way back and dig themselves out of a 3-0 deficit. That didn't happen, ultimately. But no response in that third period. The Canucks standing around. Myers trips McDavid in the first minute of the third. And it was a penalty. McDavid with that quick spin move, and Tyler Myers gets his stick into the skates. And referees are going to look at that and give McDavid certainly the benefit of the doubt almost every time out. Now, on that power play, we already talked about Petey on the back check, McDavid at the back door. That Nugent-Hopkins chance off to the side of the net, I've seen the replay about 8 times. I'm still not sure. I think Lankinen got a piece of it. On a night when he didn't make many saves, sprawls to his right, gets the paddle down, and I think it may have hit the post as well. Whatever the case, the Nuge scores that 99 times out of 100, but this was the one that he couldn't get to go. So, I mean, the Canucks aren't out of it at that point. Opportunity, it was a 3-2 hockey game. The Oilers don't score on that power play, but then the floodgates open. Connor Brown at 6:10 of the third period. McDavid on the power play with Hronikov for holding. McDavid loose at the side of the net and able just to pounce on the puck. So that goal, Brown and McDavid's goals come a minute and 5 seconds apart, and then a minute after that, it's Brett Kulak, the wrist shot off the rush. That was a stinky one. Again, we haven't seen Lankinen give up many bad goals on the season. Brett Kulak basically right through him, and I kind of thought the hook might come out then. It didn't, but Rick Tocchet certainly had the hook in hand because 3 minutes after that, Connor Brown gets his second of the night, and that was it. Curtains for Kevin Lankinen. The final book on Lankinen, 51 minutes and 5 seconds, gives up 7 goals on 27 shots. So, yes, this is becoming a theme at home. Just way too many goals. Most of the big nights come against Silovs, but this one comes against Kevin Lankinen. Battle Mode Bainbridge in our chat says, how soon do you think the Canucks are going to go after another D? Yeah, I mean, look, we know that Patrick Allvin's aggressive. We know that Patrick Allvin knows how to pull off trades. I think as you assess the situation, and of course this is coming on a night where the Canucks just gave up 7 goals. They had 7 defensemen, and I'm not sure that they were thrilled with any of them on this night. Look, they're trying to accrue cap space, right? Like, they have gone to great lengths to accrue cap space. It just doesn't feel like this general manager 2 weeks into November is going to, kind of go back on the things that he's done to this point of the season. I think they want to build that pot and that pool of resources so that when they get closer to the trade deadline, they can bring in a bona fide top 4 defenseman. Now, Dante Fabro, Coquitlam kid, on waivers, $2.5 million. He's fallen out of favor, hasn't played much in Nashville. I know a lot of people, hey, bring him home. There's more there. Give him an opportunity. Again, I think the Canucks want to go bigger game hunting than Dante Fabro. They've been linked to him in the past. But the fact that he's on waivers makes you wonder, like, if the Predators been trying to trade him and just no takers, I don't think the Vancouver Canucks are going to put a claim in on Dante Fabro. Now, I was wrong a week ago when Nils Åman went on waivers, and I thought that there were teams with all sorts of problems, injury issues up front among their forward group, that they might grab a player, not a perfect player by any stretch, but I thought that he would get claimed and he didn't. Part of that is because he's got next year on a one-way contract as well. So, we'll see what happens with Dante Fabro. I don't think he's the answer for the Vancouver Canucks, and I just don't think that he is necessarily the sort of target that this management group, I think they recognize that they need a top 4 defenseman. And nights like tonight, well, they underscore them. But I just don't see, back to your question about how soon do I think it's going to happen? I wonder if they want to have a look at this team with a healthy Thatcher Demco. Is that pie in the sky? Maybe, because who knows if they're ever going to see a completely healthy Thatcher Demco, who was out on the ice as one of 3 goaltenders in the morning skate. I posted on X, like, he's got really cool looking all black pads with a yellow and red stripe. Ian Clark's not in charge on a day-to-day basis, so black pads, I guess, are allowed now. That was an Ian Clark thing. But Thatcher Demko was out there for the morning skate. Now, the Canucks are getting down to business. There's only 2 nets out there. But he basically stood off to the side by himself. If people are wondering, like, what did we see from Thatcher Demko? What are the tells about where he is on his recovery here? Like, he's out on the ice a lot, and starting to get out there with the group, but he was barely involved. So this in no way was a practice for Thatcher Demco. He may have stuck around after the morning skate. The room opened. We had to go in and talk to the players. So I didn't see how much work he put in after the players had left. But I need to see him have a full practice where he has basically a net of his own, and they can let Silovs and Lankinen share the other net. I want to see him facing shots. I want to see him in game situations, scrambles in the blue paint, all that uncontrolled motion and movement that you need from a goaltender. And we haven't seen any of that from him. So that's just kind of painting a picture of where Thatcher Demco is right now in his recovery. Every time he's out there, beats the alternative. But I still think that, you're looking at a couple of weeks at the very least. And to get there, I think he's going to have to ramp things up considerably if he's able. Maybe his body is telling him that he's just not there yet. Whatever the case, it's not like they've got Thatcher Demco in their back pocket to trot out on Tuesday because he's not going to be there. He's not ready. He's still on the injured list. But they've got a decision to make. Calgary shelled Artur Silovs. Do you go back to Silovs and hope that he can get it right against the Flames? Do you give Lankinen the benefit of the doubt and come back with him on Tuesday after a couple of days of practice? We won't know probably until game day on Tuesday, but Canucks do have some decisions to make there, and ultimately 11-7 didn't really work for them, so we'll see where Brock Besser is, and fingers crossed that he's not out long. And then Dakota Joshua is getting closer as well, and Patrick Alvin, who spoke to the media briefly this morning down at the rink, he said that, Joshua, a possibility for Tuesday, wasn't making any promises, but did say that on this homestand for sure, that was the plan. So, again, I think he's really close, but whether it's Tuesday, I suppose we're all going to have to wait there. Steve Wong says, do you think the Canucks might go with a 22-man roster when Joshua, Besser, and Demco are all healthy to accrue more cap space and be able to make a trade earlier than the trade deadline? Well, yeah, we've seen this on these off days when they send guys down. Let's see what happens here. They've got 2 days off now between games. Abbotsford's at home. Does Archie Baines, does Atu Ratu, do they go down and play in Abbotsford? Do they send them down just to collect on their salaries and get those off the books for a couple of days? But remember, the Canucks are supposed to practice for 2 days here, and Rick Tocchet doesn't have a lot of extra bodies up front as long as Brock Besser isn't in the mix. So lots of moving parts here. But yeah, I think this group is all about accruing cap space. I think it's trying to be productive. I think it's trying to be, what's the word I'm looking, progressive, I suppose. And with Abbotsford here, using the farm team to its fullest benefit. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they went with that sort of roster, especially when they're at home. If you're out on the road and, they've got a long Eastern trip coming up at the end of the month, far from home, far from Abbotsford, maybe you load up then. But I do think it's all situational for the Vancouver Canucks, and I think they wish that they had a few more defensemen that could get the job done in this hockey game tonight. 7-3, they get clowned by the Edmonton Oilers, and this one's going to sting for the Vancouver Canucks. Nowhere to hide. They've got to bounce back, and they've got to do it in a hurry against the Calgary Flames, because we've talked about this month of November presents opportunities in a big way for the Canucks when you look at the teams that they're facing. That said, it's the NHL, and if the Canucks defend like they did here in this one, then they probably won't have the success that they want. But a couple of days of practice, maybe it's back to boot camp. What did Tocchet say after the New Jersey game? That it was the closest he could remember to when he arrived on the scene. Well, I can't imagine that he was digging what he saw from his hockey club in this one. I see that he didn't spend a lot of time at the podium, so I've been there in postgame where Rick Tocchet's talked for 10, 15 minutes. The Canucks post 2.5 minutes of Rick Tocchet, and the quote that they pull is, "We're not getting to our game early enough, have to play more predictable." And that goes back to our stat that stands out. Giving up early goals, falling behind. It's all part of that recipe that's just not leading to the success that they're looking for, particularly at Rogers Arena. So the Canucks fall 7-3 to the Edmonton Oilers. Vancouver Whitecaps Their season is over, came to an end, a 1-0 loss to LAFC last night. So there'll be no MLS Cup for the Vancouver Whitecaps. But intriguing season. They won the Canadian Championship. They will always have that 5-0 win in Portland, and that was a ton of fun. They had the 3-0 win last week over LAFC. So there were certainly some moments along the way. So we congratulate the Vancouver Whitecaps, and we'll look forward to bigger and better things from them in 2025. For all the off-season information, make sure that you are following all of their social channels, and you can check their website as well, whitecapsfc.com. All right, time for our line of the night, and it's brought to you by Bet365. We'll look at the National Hockey League schedule tomorrow, and an intriguing matchup. The San Jose Sharks at the New Jersey Devils. Now, the Devils played and won in overtime, beat the New York Islanders 4-3, Jack Hughes with the winner. So it's back-to-back for the Devils. It's the start of an Eastern road trip for the San Jose Sharks. I know where the Sharks are in the standings. Saw the Canucks beat them last Saturday night. But if you're looking for value here, Devils, a tired team, playing back-to-back. Sharks are rested, although they've had to make their way across the continent. But they've been better of late. Put up a pretty good fight against the Canucks. There's some value to be had there if you think that the Sharks can rise up and make a deal with the Devils. You can get the Sharks at plus 275 on the money line. That is our line of the night. It's brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION. Make sure that you use that code if you're opening an account. NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 7-3 Oilers all over the Vancouver Canucks. The goal scorers for the Canucks: Pettersson with his third of the year, Hronek with his first. And Pia Suter, Pia Suter up to 5 now on the season. So, again, scratching for silver linings, but the production of Pia Suter, a little bit of a surprise, given that this is a guy that got injured in the preseason in a game in Edmonton, didn't play the opener, looked out of camp like he had lost that fourth-line center spot to Atu Ratu. But as we saw last year, the luxury of a guy like Pia Suter is you can move him around the lineup, you can plug him in a bunch of different spots, and he can help your hockey club, and he's certainly done that, although there was no helping the Canucks' cause in this one as they get skated out of the rink by the Edmonton Oilers. All right, practice days ahead for the Canucks now. They should have 2 days of practice, I believe, and then get back at it against Calgary on Tuesday. And as we said, then it's the Islanders, back-to-backs next weekend, the Blackhawks and the Nashville Predators, and then the homestand wraps up against those New York Rangers. Always fun when the Rangers come to town, but Canucks can't think or worry about the Rangers. That's a ways off right now. Look, we ask you periodically here on the show to check in the live chat or using any of our social channels. We want to know where you're watching the live stream or where you listen to the podcast of Rink Wide Vancouver. We call it Rink Wide Worldwide. And again, we don't do this every night. We did in the playoffs, but we'll sort of scale back here in the regular season. But on a night like tonight, I think we needed a little distraction. So we got Jacob, the producer, to build us the map here. And there you go if you're watching the YouTube stream. All right, Kamloops. And trust me, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Kamloops. Spent 6 good years there, met my wife there, called Blazers games for 5 years, got to call a Memorial Cup win with Jerome McGinley and Shane Doan and Darcy Tucker and a team of all-stars, one of the great junior hockey teams of all time, the 1995 Kamloops Blazers. So we thank you for the support up in the Loops. Southern California is pretty general. I didn't see that message come in, but I would have thought that we could have sort of nailed it down a little more. Southern California. Could be Anaheim, could be LA, could be San Diego, could be anywhere in between. Carlsbad, wherever. We thank you. We've got an unnamed pin over on the East Coast. Love our support from the East Coast.
So Jeff, the unnamed pins, those are what we had last time. So that was New Jersey. We had one in Sweden. We had one down in Australia as well. We want to keep all the pins on throughout the year.
Okay, I got you. And then Thailand. We got somebody checking in from Thailand. So, again, take a moment, drop us a line. We love the support, love how active the chat is. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be a part of the ongoing discussion during each and every Rink Wide episode that we bring your way. And then follow us on our socials as well. Drop comments, reviews. Give us a 5-star review. Come on. You know you love Rink Wide. We're here to do this each and every night through the regular season, and we're already looking forward to playoff hockey, although they're going to have to play a whole lot better than they did in this one if they think that they're going to be a playoff team and a team that can make some noise in the postseason. This was forgettable, but these nights do happen. It's how you respond. You don't want to have too many bounce-back games over the course of a season, but that's where the Canucks find themselves after a 7-3 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. You know what the Canucks could use? I feel like they charter a team bus right after the game and head to the nearest White Spot. Because at White Spot, they're all about enjoying great, comforting food. And trust me, the Canucks could use a little comfort after this one. With the new comfort menu, White Spot's focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family. Available now and developed by the White Spot culinary team. The comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. The new menu features mouth-watering new additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, home-style pot roast, and backed by popular demand, it's the iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. Make sure you check out Canucks Army for instant reaction and the usual post-game features, the stanchies, the statsies. I'll have a Sunday column tomorrow. I got to figure out a topic, but we'll sit down and hammer out something. Got the mailbag coming on Monday as well. Lots of feedback on the mailbag, and we appreciate questions for that. We'll put out a call there as well. And then, of course, on Monday, actually it's not because of Remembrance Day, Canucks Convo Tuesday through Friday next week, Sakaris and Price as well. All right, producer Jacob, we got off to a bit of a rocky start tonight. Blake was supposed to be here, but we had some technical issues hooking up with him. So we appreciate the fact that Blake was going to work a Saturday game with us, but flew solo here. I think we made it. Lots of great support in the chat. So we appreciate all of those contributions as well. Try and work as much feedback into the program as we can as we go. So Tuesday will be your next opportunity for that. But I think we have exhausted everything that we had to say about this one. Let's be honest. There wasn't a lot good to say about the Vancouver Canucks as the Oilers skate circles around them, take the first game of this 3-game season series. They'll meet again in January. Pettersson, Hronek, and a late one from Pia Suter. Those are the goal scorers for the Vancouver Canucks on a tough night for Kevin Lankinen. For producer Jacob Lazar, I'm Jeff Patterson, even on my own. Thanks so much for staying there, providing a little company for us as we bring you Rink Wide Vancouver.